Hello students, today's topic is all about sensory play and learning. Let's dive into the topic. First of all, a quick introduction to sensory play. What is sensory play? Simply defined, sensory play is any type of play that involves the five senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Sensory play might not involve all of these things at the same time. For example, smell might not be involved, or taste might not be involved. But sensory play typically involves the five senses. After this, in class, we're going to watch 4 or 5 videos that do a great job showing just what sensory play is. Rather than me redoing and explaining all these, I want all the students to watch these 5 videos. So I have included a slides presentation that you can click on the videos and be able to watch those. Second, third video, fourth video, and fifth video. Next, we want to talk about making sensory play happen in early childhood classrooms. So we've learned about sensory play. Just how do we go about making sensory play part of our early childhood classrooms? First, and most obvious one that many centers do is to place materials and accessories in a sensory table. Sometimes this is called a water table or a sand table. I tend to call it a sensory table because oftentimes you include different things other than water and sand. Another sensory play option are to create sensory bottles. So pictured here are a half dozen or so colored bottles, and each of these bottles have things in them like buttons or something like that. So these are fun for kids to shake and see and listen to and kind of feel the water moving inside. So sensory bottles is one option. Another option is to create sensory bags. I've seen these used a lot with very young children, perhaps infants and toddlers, where they can kind of feel and sense and press and touch these bags with the things inside of them. Another option is to create a sensory board for hands or feet. So pictured here is a sensory board with several different textures on it. So I've seen these where a child would just kind of feel the different things with their hands and be able to talk about and describe what they're feeling. I've also seen larger ones that go on the floor where a child would take off their shoes and socks and they would walk on it and feel just how it would feel on their feet. So those are some sensory play options. I encourage everybody in all of our teaching that we do to be intentional. We want to make all kind of play, including sensory play, inviting, engaging, and a place where learning will occur. So keeping this in mind, be intentional, make it inviting, engaging, and a place where learning can occur. Next, we want to dive into some sensory table ideas. So this is most commonplace in the early childhood classroom. So we're going to look at a bunch of different ideas just to see what we could do with the sensory table. So I have a long list here. I'm just going to hit a few different things. So this one talks about tools that we would add to the sensory table. So the next slide is going to focus on materials to put in the sensory table, but these are just some tools that kids might want to use with it, such as shovels, rake, pails, pans, bowls, scissors, tweezers, a colander, all kinds of different stuff that you could put in with the various material or fillers that go in your sensory table. This slide shows the fillers. So these are different common things that we put in, like sand and water. Soapy water is fun. I put in soapy water before, along with a bunch of old dramatic play babies. And then the children take washcloths and sponges, and they wash the babies and get them nice and clean. Ice, snow, dirt, cooked noodles. Some teachers use cooked noodles. I've used uncooked pasta before, so There's a lot of different kinds of noodle shapes that you can put in, and you can actually color pasta so it's bright and vibrant for playing with. Flour is one thing that you may want to put in. With flour, it reminds me, you want to be very cautious of any children in your classroom who have any allergies. So if you happen to have somebody in your classroom who has celiac disease, flour, oatmeal, some other things would be very dangerous for that child to be breathing that in. So be very conscious of the fillers that you put in your table. So you are welcome to review more of this list, but there's a lot of different things that are things you could put in the sensory table. Next, we're going to look at just some examples of things. So these are these Orbeez, these little, they come as little pellets, and then when you add water, they absorb the water. So these are Orbeez, and then the tool in there this time is kind of a scissor scoop. So you control it with your hand, but then it is a scoop. So you could scoop up some Orbeez, and then picture there is a cup too as well. One of the things that kids do with sensory materials is pouring and measuring. So this is a neat idea for sensory materials. Pictured here is a birthday sensory theme. So you might want to have a theme of what you have in your table. So pictured here are some colored rice. So they colored a batch of blue, colored a batch of yellow, colored a batch of pink, and then they mix those together. Also pictured are some neat candles, some little cupcake liners. So this would be fun for kids to explore, feel. They're going to learn about math concepts. They're going to be able to count candles to correspond with the numeral, etc. Pictured here, as I was talking about before, are noodles. So we have some wagon wheel noodles and rotini noodles and bow tie noodles, and there's all kinds of different noodle shapes, and they dyed these noodles. And one of the important things about dyeing noodles is you can't use water because water would make the noodles soft like you're cooking them. So you dye them by taking alcohol, mixing food coloring with the rubbing alcohol, and then you let the noodles sit in that. So that when you take the noodles out, the alcohol is going to kind of go into the atmosphere, evaporate, that's the word I was looking for. So then you will have dried colored noodles that you can play with. Pictured here is more of that rice, another birthday kind of theme, and this one might be more for making a birthday cake. So you are pretending with the rice. I see measuring cups there. I see a whisk there. I see a spoon for measuring. I see tablespoons and teaspoons, and all these are good things. You can, when you're working with children with these things, you can talk about a half a cup versus a whole cup. Which one is larger and why? So there's so many mathematical concepts that you can help kids learn if you're intentional with your conversation when playing in the media table. Here is a construction sensory idea. So this one looks fun. So they have got some little gravel pieces and some larger stones. Looks like some paper towel tubes in there, some construction trucks. So this would be fun to kind of drive around. We also see that a lot of the stones have letters written on them. So as you're working with children, you can help them find letter names. You might say, hey, what letters are in your name? And we could find all those stones and line them up and spell their names. So good teachers are very intentional and have conversations that help kids learn while they are playing. I found this one. This one is letter puzzles. So this one has a kind of bean in it. I'm not sure what kind of beans those are. And then they have little puzzle pieces. So you find the puzzle pieces and then you put the puzzles together. So maybe the puzzle pieces are like 2-piece puzzle, 3-piece puzzles, 4-piece puzzles, etc. But that could be fun where you're searching for things and then putting them together as well. While we're on this one, as I was preparing for the subject, I did find that there is one type of bean that before it is cooked it is very poisonous. It's toxic, and I don't know what kind it is, but if you eat it before it is cooked, it is toxic. So this is a kind of bean that you would never put in a sensory table for kids, and I forget what it's called, so it's going to be up to you to find out just what that bean is that's toxic before cooked. This was another cool theme I saw, a Halloween sensory theme. So we see letters in there to help kids with letter recognition. I see some little ghosts, some little bones, purple and green. There's split peas in there. There's purple and green measuring spoons, little black cauldrons, some spooky eyes. So if you're a center that does activities around holidays, this would be a fun one. I see little spiders in there as well. So a lot of cool ideas in this one. And I've read that a lot of times people find things at the dollar store. So the little things that go in might be things that you could find at a dollar store. Another theme related to a holiday is an Easter one. This one, they have a bunch of eggs in there, plastic eggs in there, as well as a bunch of colored beans, really neat pastel colors. And then I see an egg tray in there with numbers on it. So they could search for the little bunnies that are hidden in the table, and they could put 1 in the 1 spot, 2 in the 2 spot, 3 in the 3 spot, and so on. So again, be intentional as a teacher, help kids learn while they're having fun. Spring is almost here. This one shows plants. So there's some, looks like wood chips in there. You could also do soil in there. You have to make sure that the soil you use doesn't have any fertilizers added, because that might not be safe for kids. But I see flowers, and I see a little rake and a little shovel. So another idea for a sensory activity. This one, the focus is on colors. So this one, there's a bunch of bright colors in there. There's brightly colored rice, little colored pom-poms, cupcake liners that are solid of different colors, different kind of things for stirring. So this will be a fun one. And I see a little sorting tray down there. So this is helping children to sort by colors. So they're discriminating. They're looking to see what the differences are based on color. They could also sort them based on size, because there's large pom-poms and mini pom-poms in there. So different things that you could add to a sensory. This one is a pumpkin one. So this one has some little beans. I think these are called chickpeas that they have colored again, and there's little those little trays in there are actually ice cube trays, so they're flexible ice cube trays. And the teacher for this one has added some tongs in there, some spoons in there, some pans in there. So kids are going to be doing a lot of scooping and pouring and measuring, really using a lot of fine muscle skills as they play in this activity. A summer sensory activity. This one was kind of cool. Again, it's probably an ice cube tray for the pineapple kind of thing. A different kind of scoop in there where it looks like you squeeze it together. So that's exercising some fine muscles. Some different colors scattered throughout. So the child can do a lot of counting of the beans, sorting things, looking for hidden things, like those little guys with the sunglasses might be hidden down in there, and as a child explores, they're going to find those. So fun activity as a sensory activity. This one looked cool too. This is a recycling sensory one. So it looks like this one, they have a lot of paper torn up. Not sure really what it is, but I see a little garbage can, a little recycling truck, garbage truck. So this, and colored tissue paper, tongs. The little tongs in there are good for fine motor control as the child squeezes them together to pick something up. So just another idea for this table. This one I also found interesting. Some shredded paper is in there. I've seen this advertised at stores before where you can buy this shredded paper, and I think it's really for kind of gift packaging of something where you might put it in a gift that you're giving. But this teacher also added some scissors in there so the kids could practice scissor skills by cutting up these little things. That would be a really good way to practice scissor skills because the kid would have a lot of success in cutting such small pieces of paper. When children are first learning to use scissors, it's pretty challenging trying to hold a big piece of paper in one hand and cut it with the other hand, but this might help a child with that important fine muscle skill of using scissors. So that was not an exhaustive list. That was kind of a small list of things that I found on a website showing different sensory table fillers and accessories to go with them. Next, we're going to take a quick look at sensory bottle. So pictured here are some, these look like those the small water bottles, and they've just put a lot of things in them. So this is really good for kids to compare with. Some of these, when they shake, are going to be really loud, like the beans are going to be really loud, versus the pom-poms are going to be very quiet. So when you're being intentional with a child and having a conversation, you can say, hey, one is loud, one is soft. Why do you think the difference is? Some of those bottles are going to be light, like the one with feathers is going to be light versus the one with the rocks in it is going to be heavy. So a lot of shaking, seeing, listening, and comparing that you can do with those sensory bottles. I thought this was a cute picture that I saw. So this is a little kid, a little baby with different colors in the sensory bottles. So babies like to look at things. They like to look at things up close. So this would be something that maybe they could reach out for and they could grab one. And it's probably going to go in their mouth. But you have to make sure that the lids are not only screwed on, but hot glued on. So the lids aren't going to come out. And always when a baby's playing with something, you're just going to watch them very carefully and make sure that they are safe. These were some liquid and solid bottles to shake, see, listen, and compare. So these ones are filled with various things. Hair gel is often put in these bottles because of the consistency, and then they just have like stars and different things in these bottles. So if you go on Pinterest or go on Google, you can find gobs and gobs and gobs of ideas of what to put in sensory bottles. Some more sensory bottles that look attractive. So you'll see some with glitter down on the end, some of these little rings on this end. So just a whole bunch of different things. And then as you shake them, you're going to see the things move in the bottle. And depending on what liquid or thick liquid you have in the bottle, the things inside are going to move differently. We're going to do some sensory bottles in our classroom. Pictured on the right here is an oil and water bottle. So as we know, oil and water do not mix. So what they did with this one is they colored the water first, and then they colored the oil, and then they put them together, and then they stay separate from each other. The middle one is just some things that they picked up outside on a walk. The left one has some glitter, and I think the left one has a hair gel in it or conditioner in it, one of those two things. We're also going to do some color mixing sensory bottles. So those are things that we're going to do in class. These are both videos that you can watch and see just how they went about doing it. But we're going to watch the videos in class where the videos will be our teacher and help us learn how to make such bottles. Sensory bag ideas. Since I never had infants or toddlers at my center, well, I had toddlers but not infants, I never really made sensory bags, but I wanted to include it in this class. And here is a video that you can watch of how a teacher went about making this sensory bag. We're almost to the end of this presentation. Sensory recipes for sensory tables. So a lot of times, you will want to make something to put in your sensory table. So I have some different things here. I'm just going to go through them quickly. So oobleck is cornstarch and water, and it forms what is called a suspension. A suspension is something that is sometimes a liquid and sometimes a solid. So when you mix the cornstarch and the water together, you pick it up in your hand, it feels like a solid, but then it kind of melts in your hand and runs through your fingers, and it behaves like a liquid. So again, the chemistry name for that is a suspension. Clean mud is the next one. Clean mud involves tearing up a whole bunch of toilet paper, grinding up some soap bars, mixing it together with water, and it just creates a really neat substance to play with. Kinetic sand is taking regular sand, and I think you add baby oil to it, perhaps. Slime is something that we're going to make in our class. As I was researching this lesson, I found tons and tons and tons of slime recipes, and there's people that have slime YouTube pages where they show different ways to make slime. I was just kind of amazed at the obsession with slime, so we're going to make that in our class. Another thing we're going to make in class is Play-Doh. You can have a lot of different Play-Doh recipes. The one we're going to make in class is a cooked Play-Doh, where you have things like flour and oil and water and cream of tartar and salt. And it is the best Play-Doh that I've played with, so we're going to try that. Cloud Dough is another one. I forget the recipe for this one. Colored noodles is next. So as we saw in some of those pages before, there was rice, there were colored noodles. So colored noodles is something that, again, you make with food coloring and alcohol. Fake snow is something that you can buy and then add water to, and it resembles the look and feel of snow. Orbeez, we're going to play with some Orbeez in our class. And these are those little bitty pellets that when you add water to, they absorb the water and become small balls that will be fun for watching how the water absorbs, as well as for measuring. And then the last line on the slide is et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would encourage you to go to Google, go to Pinterest, search out sensory play recipes, sensory play ideas, and you will find more ideas than you would have dreamed of. This week's in-class application assignment is we are going to set up 10 different sensory tables in our classroom, or sensory bins in our classroom. Students are going to go around and experiment with playing in each of these different bins. So these different bins are going to have different fillers in them. They're going to have different accessories in them. And each student is going to take 10 forms like the one shown here. They're going to write their name. They're going to write the learning station. So each station will have a number by it. Then they're going to describe the sensory play material. So they're going to give a verbal description of just what the filler is in that table. They're going to also describe the accessories in that table. And then the one that is a little more challenging is they're going to think of 3 things that a child may learn from exploring this material with the provided accessories. So as I have spoken of many times in this class, I want teachers to be able to explain always what kids are learning from the play activities that we provide. If a teacher were writing a lesson plan, the lesson plan would include objectives, and the objectives are no more than stating what the child is expected to learn through playing with the materials or doing the lesson. So this is a way for us to focus in on that. At this point, I would take questions and discussions in our class, and this ends this short video on sensory play in the early childhood classroom.